The illegal wildlife trade is one of the largest transnational crimes, worth up to $23 billion a year. And Nigeria is not only a source for wildlife products, but also a major transit hub. Yet, conserving wildlife is actually of more value. Globally, wildlife tourism is worth 5 times more in generated revenue than the illegal trade. I spoke to the British High Commissioner to Nigeria, Mrs. Catriona Laing, who believes that a global strategy to end the trade has become more necessary than ever in a pandemic era. Now, the prevalence and, of course, illegal trade of wildlife animals across the globe is something that we are seeing far more governments and international organizations paying attention to in a post or in a pandemic era. Why is this topic particularly important to you?
So I think one of the reasons is, as you mentioned, the pandemic. I think, as you know, there's a lot of speculation that the coronavirus itself originated through a zoonotic disease. And that comes about because of deforestation, people's loss of biodiversity. So that's one of the reasons we have to care about the illegal wildlife trade, because it links directly to our own personal health. The more forests go, the more likely we are to see future zoonotic diseases. But secondly, this is a huge illegal trade. Organised criminal networks are making billions out of the illegal wildlife trade. And in some cases, we've seen evidence that this is fueling insurgencies, potentially even in Nigeria itself. And thirdly, of course, that we just care about these creatures for future generations. I would like to feel happy and confident that my daughter, her daughter, will be able to see these wonderful creatures and not just read about them in books or see them on films.
And has the UK government always been this interested in ending the illegal wildlife trade, or is this a sudden interest here in Nigeria?
This government is fully committed, and of course we're hosting COP26 this year, and one of the big themes of COP26 is nature-based solutions, finding solutions both to mitigation and to adaptation. And Nigeria is a really good example of this, because 2/3 of your carbon emissions come from deforestation and illegal land use, which of course itself is leading to the problems of biodiversity. So what we're trying to do is help Nigeria think through holistic solutions that will both deal with carbon emissions, but also help you adapt for climate change and preserve people's livelihoods, as well as conservation of animals, so joining it all up.
At the recently concluded G7 summit in Cornwall, leaders of the group committed to halt and reverse biodiversity loss by 2030, and also tackle deforestation, marine litter, and the illegal wildlife trade. I spoke to Mrs. Laing on plans to continue this conversation, as the UK will host the UN Climate Change Conference COP26 in Glasgow this November. The illegal trade of wildlife animals, is this a topic of conversation on the table at COP26 this year?
So I think through the nature-based solutions, what we're trying to shine a spotlight on is to give people additional reasons to care, as you asked in your first question. So, and also for people to see that there is value from wildlife in preserving it rather than in eating it or taking its scales and selling them. So I'm really glad that some of the work we're doing here is thinking about it from that perspective. So livelihoods have to come into this, as well as, I think, education. And this is what's so good about this centre here, is that children are learning, the sooner you learn, the better, that these are part of your environment and it's part of your responsibility to ensure that these wonderful creatures exist for you and for your children and your children's children.
Now, one of the main goals of the summit is, of course, to mobilize funds for climate change. How specifically is the UK supporting Nigeria's efforts to end the illegal wildlife trade?
Well, on that global target that you quite rightly mentioned, which is a very clear commitment and an essential commitment, because I think if we're going to bring developing countries with us, and that's one of their big asks, you want us to preserve our wildlife, you want to preserve our forests, to transition to renewables, it costs money. And we're with you, but you need to commit. So that I think it's 110 billion actually, is a very clear commitment. The UK has already made a commitment of 11.5 billion, and we're on track to deliver that. And in Nigeria, I'm actually just working on a big bid that we're going to be putting in to that fund to work on exactly what I mentioned before, a very big program which is going to try and link sustainable agriculture with deforestation, with illegal wildlife. So it's exactly that point. So I'm hoping we'll be successful in securing some of that 11.5 billion for Nigeria itself. And we're talking about a large program that will be sort of multi-million program over many years. At the same same time, there's lots of smaller initiatives like supporting this centre, for example, supporting PhD students who are working on understanding the illegal wildlife trade. And then thirdly, on the law enforcement side, as I mentioned, we've set up a really good working relationship with the Controller General of Customs, with our American colleagues and our German colleagues, who are also very big donors in this area of the illegal wildlife trade. So we're working together, supporting the law enforcement side. So we're coming at it from all different angles.
And a lot of people often wonder why should we care about wildlife? To you, why do you think the public needs to start caring more about conserving wildlife?
If you conserve your forests, not only do you reduce your carbon dioxide emissions, you also create livelihoods for people. That rich forest creates livelihood opportunities and ensures we protect biodiversity for the benefit of our future generations.
Mrs. Catriona, thank you so much for speaking to me today.
Thank you.